Hello, you lovely people. Welcome to another Enhanced Edition, where this time I've done some work on Studio Series Blitzwing, as is probably obvious. Now, I know there's a lot that's been said about how this jet is not the kind of jet that Blitzwing actually is in the movie. I don't care. It's a jet, and it turns into Blitzwing as he appeared mostly in the movie, and that's fine with me. I care way more about the robot modes than the vehicle modes, so it's a jet, it's passable, moving on. I'm actually mixing up the format of Enhanced Edition a little bit for this one because I wanted to try something new. Don't know if I'm going to stick with it, but starting out, what I did was I actually went in and painted a lot of little details on this guy. Not everything. I kind of had to be selective here and there because I didn't have certain paints. Like, I couldn't match certain colors, so I had to leave certain things unpainted because I couldn't paint them to match other things I did paint. And I tried to go in and add a little bit more detail here and there. And that was kind of like the typical painting process, which you're seeing right now, which is basically just going in with a brush and some paint and painting in the little details, using my reference photos. Then once I had finished painting, going in with the enamel thinner to kind of clean up any lines that I might have gone outside of, to try and make it look a little bit more tidy. Then once all of that was done, I actually gave this guy about 2 weeks, a little bit longer than 2 weeks, to dry. I don't think it's necessary to have it dry that long, but the enamel paints that I use, they do take a little bit of time to fully cure. So I gave him about 2 weeks of just standing on the shelf, tried to give that paint as much time as possible to set, because I wanted to go over everything with the Tamiya panel liner that I use as like a wash, and kind of go over stuff to make him look a little bit more grungy and greasy and used up. And that, as you're seeing now, is sort of a process of just painting, and this is not how you normally use the panel lining fluid, but it's a process of painting the panel liner over the cracks and crags and other areas that I wanted to kind of get looking kind of gunky. And then, before the panel liner had time to dry, going in with a paper towel and wiping it off. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I wanted this stuff to kind of build up. I didn't want it to be clean. I wanted it to be messy, and I wanted it to kind of leave like a dingier color all over everything. It's probably not easy to see here because I don't have one side done and one side not, but basically the entire thing, for the most part, has been gone over with panel liner and then wiped off. I think it definitely works to bring out more of those details. Now, I didn't worry too much about the jet mode because, like I said, I really don't care that much about the jet mode. I do think it looks better with the panel lining and the grunginess, because you can kind of see how it's like little smears here and there, which is part of the look that I was trying to go for. And it's not perfectly symmetrical, like it's a little darker here than it is here, and all of that I think is fine, because again, I wanted it to look more like dingy and used. It wasn't so much that I was trying to go for full accuracy, because, as has been established, this is not accurate to the movie at all. This is not the kind of jet that Blitzwing turned into. I just wanted it to look a little bit more weathered, a little bit more used. And in that regard, I think it turned out pretty well. But I'm just super not into this jet mode in general. It's fine, but the deco here is a little weird, how you've got this gray along here, but it's just along the nose cone section going back maybe halfway along the plane, and then the wings are white, but then the tail fins are gray. The underside of the nose is gray. It's weird. Or white rather, it's just strange. But I do like how he stores all of his stuff under here, like his little hand spike thing, which we'll see more when we get to robot mode. His blaster is pegged in here, and that actually integrates pretty well into the jet mode. I'm impressed by that. And then his little fuel pods, if that's what these are, maybe they're bombs, I don't know. Those are also integrated. I mean, they should be integrated well in the jet mode because, they're the only definitively jet thing. I also did the kind of wash over these, and you can kind of see how the difference in color worked out if you look at the inside here versus how it looks elsewhere. So it definitely kind of dulls the colors a bit. Anyway, that's it for the jet mode. There's really not much to talk about because, like I said, everything I did was pretty much just in service of the robot mode. I mostly just did the wash over the jet to kind of finish the look, and also because a lot of the jet stuff is visible in robot mode, so I wanted to have that kind of overlap, I guess. Anyway, let's move on to the robot mode. Now this is where all of the effort went, as I'm sure is obvious. At least I hope it's obvious. I ended up using the 3A Deluxe Blitzwing figure as a reference because it was just easier to find multi-angle shots of that figure than the CGI model of the character in the movie. I really, really like how this came together. It doesn't feel like a lot. Looking at it right now, it just kind of, to me, feels like, oh, all I did was add some grunge to it and that's it. But then, like, actually looking at this next to what the figure used to look like, it's a little bit more obvious that a fair bit of stuff was done to this guy. I painted in the wheels for the toes and also these little struts back here. I did them like a metallic color. And then I went over like all of these areas with that wash and even inside the ankle joint here and along here. I also painted these wheels back here because these are the actual landing gear wheels that are used in the jet mode, and did more of that wash there. You can see more of the wash along the back here. I painted these little knee areas gunmetal color, as well as the around the knee bits here. And then of course, again, did the wash. This one was tricky, like this area here, because this is actually two separate pieces. So you can see how this bit here just kind of stops. And then there's this bit here. So I kind of separated the color across the two pieces and tried to do it in a way so that it didn't look too out of place in jet mode when this was like split open. And in the thighs, I did some gunmetal in there and then just did the wash all the way around, and even got like up inside underneath the hip panels. And the hip panels themselves I also did with that wash across that. Just for the heck of it, did the wash underneath this piece here and then also across this piece. I did not add the wash to these struts because I painted them in their entirety and I didn't really want to risk rubbing off a bunch of that paint. But I did paint these struts the gunmetal color. They're originally this gray color here, so I painted them more of a gunmetal. This isn't accurate. They're actually supposed to be closer to this color here, but I don't have a color that matches that, so I just went with the gunmetal because I thought it looked cool. I feel like the arms is where, that's where a lot of the work is visible because of the painting that I did in here with that gunmetal, and then like the wash over that, the wash over that. I just did a wash over a lot of things. Painted the red around the bicep there, which is probably the wrong place for it, but it made sense to me. And like the bicep here, I believe is supposed to be like a darker gray, but I didn't want to get too crazy with the coloring. I also added the red line along the forearm there, like that's supposed to be. I painted the hands in that gunmetal color as well. You can see looking at the pegs and back here, like it's originally this gray color, but I went over them with the gunmetal. And then in the torso, mostly up here was just the wash. I did gunmetal in these shoulder intakes here, but then the rest of it was like a wash all the way around. These little fins here, these were actually entirely white and flipped around the wrong way. Initially, these were inverted so that the little swept back thing was more swept forward. And that was actually wrong. Apparently that's just an assembly problem that Studio Series Blitzwing figures have. So all I had to do was pop these little winglets out and then take the one that was over here and put it over here and do that. So I just swapped them around. And the reason I swapped them is because I think you want to have, like you can see that where this is hinged, it's not down the middle. There's like this extra bit here. And I believe that extra bit is supposed to be facing the inside. So that's why I swapped their positions. And then I painted the tips in red. And when I went over it with the wash, you can kind of see that some of it did rub off and put a little bit of like, it smeared a little bit of red there, smeared some of the red off there. And initially I was thinking maybe I should go back and repaint it. But after thinking about it, I was thinking, you know, I want this guy to look beat up and worn and used. And so having little streaks like that and like what looks like it could be chipped paint, I think that works. I did do the wash effect over the face, which is subtle, but it does kind of make the crevices and the molded bits stick out a little bit more. I didn't do anything else to the head though, I just kind of left that as is because I didn't want to get too complex with it, like I said. And then I also did some of the bits, like I did the wash along the backs of the wings here, just to kind of make everything look like the entire figure is a little bit grimy. And yeah, that's what I did for Studio Series Blitzwing, and I think, personally, I think it turned out pretty darn well. That is not it, though. We do still have his accessories. So, just going to do the thing that everyone does and pull off this hand. And I'll just stick it back here to get it out of the way. And take his spiky thing, which I did also go over in the gunmetal color. I left this peg unpainted, the small peg there and the big peg, because that's where it's going to be pegging in places, so I didn't want the paint rub to happen. So there, he's got his metallic-y, spiky hand. One thing I didn't realize about this guy initially is that the other hand, the one that opens and closes, that one's also removable. It's the same exact peg as the non-moving hand. So if you wanted to, you could peg this in here. And for the gun, I basically just, well, basically nothing. I did just go over the whole thing with that panel lining wash and then clean it off. So you can kind of see what the plastic originally looked like in here, and now it's a little bit more grungy looking. I could have painted this ridged bit around the barrel of the gun gold, but I just kind of wanted to get this project over with. I might go back and do that later, but probably not. And this will just go into his hand and then tab into his forearm. And hopefully that won't scrape the paint off his hand. I did not think that far through. But there, you've got that. And I like how this being grunged up matches a little bit better with the rest of him that I painted. So yeah, that, I believe, is that. That is Studio Series Blitzwing with some added paint detailing and a whole lot of a grungy, kind of dingy wash applied to it, which, as I said, was just panel lining fluid. All things considered, I really didn't paint that much on this guy. I think I did more on the legs than anything else. Also, I completely forgot I actually did paint these bits in here and along here. But yeah, I didn't paint a whole heck of a lot on this guy. I just kind of wanted to add the little details that stood out to me and then go over everything to make him look a little bit more weathered. And I think it turned out great. I mean, I've seen other more movie-accurate paint schemes that people have done for customs, and those look amazing, but I don't have the materials or skills to do something that involved, so this was more my speed. This was a lot simpler. Just paint a few key areas and then do a wash over everything. It was time consuming, but most of that time was spent just waiting for the paint to dry so that I could do the wash. But that's going to do it for my relatively simple custom of Studio Series Blitzwing. What do you all think of this guy? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. As always, thank you for watching, and please stay fabulous.